In the video game world, we often hear the terms games as a service and live service games thrown around quite often. While these terms are used to describe games that are as old as World of Warcraft, this trend in video games really took off in the last decade. Let's dive into what these games really are, how they work, and how the future might possibly look like. Games as a service is a monetization model for video games in which the developers and publishers can continue to monetize the game past the initial purchase. Some examples of these games are World of Warcraft, Fortnite, Destiny 2, Rainbow Six Siege, and many others. They do this through season passes, microtransactions, or a subscription. Because of this lucrative monetization opportunity, more and more developers incorporate these features into their games, even for some that are not really modeled to be games as a service. But what harm does this model really do? Most gamers believe that, while some of the season passes and microtransactions only provide cosmetics for the game, except in few pay-to-win scenarios, it sort of sets a precedent that developers can just keep charging you for things that you can usually unlock from gameplay, essentially locking out basic features behind a paywall. So while you can definitely play some of the games mentioned completely free, some basic features you can usually unlock in single-player games are now locked behind a paywall. Let's take Destiny 2 for example, a game that's near and dear to my heart, whom I have spent over 1,000 hours on. Destiny 2 has gone free to play and is currently on the seasonal and expansion model. There will be a new expansion released yearly, and in between there are typically 4 3-month seasons. If you decide to go free to play, as of the time of recording, you have access to some in-game content, specifically 2 free raids and 1 free dungeon. But in total, there are 5 dungeons and 6 raids, and the rest is unlocked behind owning an expansion and or a dungeon key. I started out as a free-to-play player back in 2020, where there were more free raids, but after the event that's known as Destiny Content Vault, all the free raids were gone, and the 2 free raids that I mentioned were added later, one in 2021 and the other one just last month in 2022, respectively. There were times when I do a match-made activity with other players or looking at guides on YouTube that these players and YouTubers use and recommend guns that you can only randomly get from the expansion. This wealth gap, in my opinion, creates a fear of missing out, which would eventually drive you to buy the expansions so you can finally equip the build that your favorite YouTuber just released. This is just Destiny 2's case, a game that I truly know the ins and outs of. But more or less the same thing is happening in many other games using the games as a service model. However, for me personally, this is not the main harm that games as a service has cost me. And if you don't think the following will affect you, maybe it just hasn't yet. The main harm I felt that games as a service has cost me is how it affects my time management to play the games I do want to play. Other than the season passes, these games also have other ways to hook you up that don't involve money. A way to keep you playing the game so that you would be more inclined to spend money, or to keep you coming back to make you feel better for spending money on it. The way they keep reeling you back is with the weekly and daily challenges. And as mentioned before, I have spent so many hours on Destiny 2 and I am hooked. And so are about 40 million other Guardians. These challenges provide loot at higher levels, which you will need to reach max level, which means that we will come back every day and every week to do these challenges to level up and be strong enough to play the endgame. While the game is extremely fun for me and doesn't really feel like a chore to play, this means I rarely have time for other games sitting in my backlog. What's worse is that because I truly find the game to be enjoyable, I rarely want to play other games, because other than challenges, the game is really fun. This plays into another problem for me actually. I enjoy the game so much, I know that it will last, I know that there will always be new content, and I can just purchase the deluxe edition of the newest expansion, and I'll get the cheapest price on the upcoming content for the year. So, theoretically, that could be my yearly budget for video games. I spend $100 at the start of the expansion cycle, and I will not need to buy another game ever again for that year. And with the rise of Game Pass and PlayStation Plus, I can also subscribe to those as well, and I will have a library of games that I can play without spending more money than what I initially paid for the yearly subscription. And should I ever get bored of playing my games as a service game, that library, those two libraries, they're a year's worth of spending for video games that will cost you less than buying multiple video games that are not games as a service and are not on the PS Plus or Game Pass for $60, $70 a copy. And that's every year. Because let's face it, those games will still attract your attention and you definitely will want to play them. Well, you can sell those copies or trade them in for a new one, yes, but some games can turn out to be special to you, and you just want to have a copy in case you want to play them again, or just have them in your collection. In that case, you're not getting your money back. But don't get me wrong, I love single-player games. While Destiny is fun, I still find Death Stranding to be fun, and Horizon Forbidden West to be fun, God of War, and other great single-player titles as well. And with the success of Elden Ring, it shows that single-player games are not dead and will continue to thrive as, even in 2022, not everyone has the privilege of fast and stable internet connection. And even those who do might not have the privilege of playing video games for multiple hours a day that some, if not most, games as a service demand from you. The biggest developers are still working on single-player experiences, and console behemoths in Sony, Xbox, and Nintendo, they truly understand the importance of single-player experiences and will probably never stop developing them. While it's less likely for Nintendo than it is for Sony and Xbox, what if they found a way to make single-player experiences a live service? For example, there was an event for Far Cry 5 where you can do certain things to get a rocket launcher that shoots shovels instead of rockets. And Borderlands 3 also had similar events. If they provide additional narrative into these events, and then change how the world works because of these events, then these examples might just be a glimpse into what a single-player live service experience would look like. Whether we love it or not, the grind is a part of video games, no matter what game you play. Even in single-player games, there are usually amazing weapons, or an armor piece, or the coolest cars in racing games that you will need to grind for in one way or another. However, you can do that at your own pace in these single-player games. They're not going anywhere. You can unlock them anytime. But with games as a service, the ability to control the pace is taken from you, and now your window to grind is overlapping with your real-world hours, which again, what all these games as a service are trying to do is to win the war for your attention. While we will most probably always have the safety of single-player games, the industry might already be heading in the direction of taking and keeping your undivided attention. Sony has closed the deal to acquire Bungie. One of the reasons behind it is that with Bungie's success on Destiny, Sony wants Bungie's expertise to help create at least 12 games as a service by 2025. With that many games as a service, I can safely assume that there will be something for everyone. And because the monetization model is very lucrative, more developers will probably follow suit. When we have reached a point where both single-player and multiplayer experiences are in the games as a service model, and we only have a limited amount of time to allocate to video games, will we eventually only need one game? This video is also available in text and audio format on our website and on Spotify respectively. You can find the link to the other formats in the description. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.